Hello everybody, welcome to the 2022 Gran Turismo World Series. It is round 2 of the calendar. We're very much looking forward to racing action getting underway. Of course, last time out in the World Series Showdown we saw delight for Drumont. Kilian Drumont, the Frenchman, taking top honours in brilliant fashion. Can he do the same though here today at Spa, Jimmy?
We'll have to wait and see. A very overcast looking Spa, I think it's fair to say, Tom. So I reckon there'll be a challenge on the horizon for our drivers today.
My name is Tom Brooks and alongside me is Jimmy Broadbent. We are live in 4 different languages today. You can join us in English, of course, here as well as Japanese, Spanish and in Italian also. Well, let's wait and see, shall we? But first of all, here is the calendar for 2022. Of course, we kicked things off back in July with round 1 of the World Series. We had our World Series Showdown at Red Bull's Hangar 7 in Salzburg at the end of the month. We're here today for round 2 in the Nations Cup. Then we've got round 3 later on in October. Then the World Finals comes to you live from Monaco at the end of November. We cannot wait to see who we're going to be crowning as our 2022 champions. But let's have a look, shall we, and see what our 12 drivers are going to be facing today. The Porsche 911 GT1 Strassen version. Racing soft tyres at Spa-Francorchamps. Possibility of a bit of inclement weather too.
Yeah, looking forward to that. We've been told there's a high possibility of rain at some point during this race, so you do have to make a pit stop, 1 mandatory pit stop, but of course no mandatory tyres. That could be a double soft, of course that could be maybe a wet tyre as well, so in the wet this Porsche 911 GT1 will be an absolute monster to handle, so I do really hope we get a bit of rain later on.
And also a grid start as well. It's not going to be easy to get that thing off of the line, so let's see what is going to happen. But crucially before that, let's have a look and see who is going to be lining up on the grid. So these are the 12 drivers in the Nations Cup. Igor Fraga from Brazil, Kilian Drumont for France, Ryota Kokubun for Japan, Lucas Benelli for Brazil, Baptiste Beauval for France, then Jose Serrano for Spain, Tomoaki Yamanaka for Japan, with Valerio Gallo for Italy, Angel Nostroza for Chile, Adriano Carrazza for Brazil, Kawakami for Japan and McEwen for New Zealand. Any hot favourites in there, JB?
I think it's fair to say that both Fraga and Drumont are on fantastic form at the moment. They're going to take some beating around here as well. But look out for Carrazza, look out for Benelli. They're always quick in these Nations Cup events. And of course, our champion from last year, Valerio Gallo, he's sort of yet to get off the mark here this year. And I think he's looking to try and put that right as quick as he possibly can.
And keep an eye out for Kokubun. Don't forget he was on the podium last time out at Salzburg as well. So excited to see what is going to happen in 2022 for round 2 of the World Series. But before that, let's recap and see what has happened so far this year.
Valerio Gallo would make up for his 4th place in the EMEA regional final with a win in the repechage.
In this last race I wasn't so happy. I was pretty upset on myself, but the struggle is real and we just have to accept it, move on. And also I think that from the bad side you can only then improve. That's what I'm looking for in the next races, to not look too much about the past, to enjoy the racing, motivate myself and restart once again.
World Series Nations Cup Round 1 race goes to Lucas Benelli.
Os pontos mais desafiantes do campeonato da Nations Cup, com certeza ser constante com diferentes carros e pistas, e o ponto mais gratificante até o momento foi a vitória do Round 1.
Kilian Drumont does the double in the Nations Cup. It's his first ever win.
Les choses les plus satisfaisantes ont été quand même de se mesurer au plus grand, et je peux dire que c'est très plaisant d'être à leur niveau en fait, parce que pendant des années on les a regardés, je les regardais jouer, rouler et puis être impressionné par ce qu'ils font. Donc de me dire maintenant d'arriver à un événement et puis réussir même à les battre, c'est quand même assez exceptionnel, et puis voilà, je suis quand même très fier de moi juste pour ça.
The qualifying set to begin here at Spa-Francorchamps. We're going to be going on board straight away with Matt McEwen in, of course, the 911 GT1, the road-going version, which might look almost a little bit comfy in there, actually. Down to the source for the first time. Nice and neat through there. Very important to get a good exit. It's a long run down to Eau Rouge and Radion. Slightly obscured there by the mist in the background. Looking like we might get rain any moment here at Spa as we come down the hill now. Interested to see if he's able to keep the car flat through here. Just about. Look at the tyres putting up a little bit of resistance as we go up now the Camel Straight towards Lake Commerce. Of course, the GT1 road-going version of the car, so lots of top speed, getting up to about 280 kilometres an hour down the straight before looking for the brake pedal just at the start of the curb on the left-hand side. Now we dive into Lake Com, this little complex here, right-left. and then right again. Easy to get this corner wrong, and the runoff on the exit there stops quite abruptly just before the gravel, so easy to put in the gravel there if you're not careful. Now down to Rivage. You'll be nice and neat and tidy around here. Name of the game round, Spa. A little bit deep there on the way in for Matt McEwen, having to slow the car down a bit more on exit there to get it tucked in. Now we go into Ix, off camber. Oh, and you see McEwen there getting a little bit sideways as he applies the throttle. Of course, lots of power in this 911 GT3 through a GT1 car, so very easy to get the car sideways. Now into Pouhon. A little bit lethargic on turning, it has to be said, for the first part, but seems to gather out nicely on second. Now into the Fagnes chicane. Really easy spot to make a mistake here on the first apex. A little bit wide there on the first one. Second one's a lot nicer though. Maybe a little bit early dive into the apex that time. So a bit of a mess really for Matt McEwen so far on that lap. It looks neat enough, but there are things that could be improved. Stavlo 1 now as we go up towards the hill, and now Stavlo 2. We can really unleash the power of this GT1 car. Let the Speedo just run away up the hill. Now I'll be interested to see if this car can go flat through Blanchimont. It's a corner that Group 3 cars can just about go flat through. Can this GT1 car do it? Only just there, right on the limit of grip, as we now hammer the anchors up about 125 there into the bus stop. Very tight on each chicane there, maybe a little bit too tight, would have slowed them down a little bit. And across the start finish line, a little bit of a messy lap there by Matt McEwen.
Yeah, he comes to the timing line. What is it going to be? It's a 2:14.6 then for the Kiwi, as here comes Kanata Kawakami, the Japanese driver. This might be a good reference point for him, and he goes a tenth or so quicker, so takes over top slot in this session. Adriano Carrazza, one of 3 Brazilian drivers on the grid, comes out of the bus stop and aims it to the timing line. He goes provisional pole with a 2:14.4.
I'll show you how tight it is around him. McEwen's that was pretty decent, but a few little mistakes creeping in means that he's already third provisionally. Here comes Angelin Estroza, usually a fairly quick guy in qualifying. It does a 14.2 for him, so he goes provisional pole. Gallo, he needs a good result here, really does. So it has to be a provisional pole for him, but it's not. It's a 2:14.2, only 3 thousandths slower than Estroza though.
Well, that's not good at all there for him, because it'll be second best on the grid for Valerio Gallo. Grid start to remind you as well, so that will make things very interesting. What about Tomoaki Yamanaka? Big old slide out of the final corner. That's going to compromise his time surely, and it does. It's a 2:15 flat for the Samurai then.
I find it insane in these cars that, of course, compared to the Group 3 counterparts, they're only about a second slower, which is mad for something that's so old. Jose Serrano there does a 2:14.3. Nice time for the Spaniard. Provisionally third for now, just behind Valerio Gallo. That would be good for Gallo. Baptiste Beauvoir looking for a decent result here as well after his issues last time out. Does a 2:14.8. That's not a good time for the Frenchman.
Yeah, he turned into a corner that wasn't there at the bus stop and then had to finally turn in for one that was, and it's not good at all for him. It is great though for Lucas Benelli, who goes top of the pile, provisional pole position for the Brazilian then. And what about Ryota Kokubun? Can he spoil the Brazilian's party as he comes to the line? No, he can't. So the Japanese drivers struggling here in Belgium. What about the reigning winner last time out? Drumont comes to the timing line. It's only 11th fastest. What happened to Kilian then? As Igor Fraga then ready to break the beam. Can the 2018 champ do anything to upset the apple cart? It's only 7th quickest. It's pole for Benelli for round 2 here of the Gran Turismo World Series. Well, a dramatic end to the session. Some big upsets in that one. Lucas Benelli takes pole from Angel Estroza. Great job by those 2 drivers. But you have to be sat there thinking, what on earth happened to the likes of Beauvoir, Yamanaka, Kokubun, all names, and Drumont that we're supposed to see at the sharp end?
Basically, all the people that I picked at the start there have done badly. So sorry about that, guys. That's on me. But yeah, Drumont, it must have been another mistake in qualifying. He's not been doing so well in qualifying recently, it seems. Fraga definitely would have wanted to do better as well, but Benelli showing he's still on the form, of course, after his victory in the first round now. I think still looking to be quick here and showing he's got the pace. I did give Gallo a bit of grief there for third. I don't think that was actually warranted. That's actually a decent time there from Valerio Gallo, and the only reason I say that is because from him winning so much, so him being third is like a bit of a shock.
Well, with inclement weather on the way, it's going to make things very exciting indeed. And don't forget, of course, if any drivers stick out to you and you want to vote for them as your Michelin driver of the day, you can do on Gran Turismo socials, at the Gran Turismo on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram or TikTok. And don't forget about the bonus campaign, which is currently live on Gran Turismo 7 as well. Drivers then lined up on the grid, ready to go here at Spa-Francorchamps for the Nations Cup World Series. It's round 2, and here is how the grid will be formed. Lucas Spinelli starts from pole position, the Brazilian driver, brilliant job from him. He's got Angel Hinestrosa from Chile on the front row of the grid. Row 2, the last year's champion, the reigning champion Valerio Gallo, with Jose Serrano for company. Row 3, that is Adriano Corazza, the second of the Brazilian drivers, with Kanata Kawakami alongside. Next up, Igor Fraga, 2018 champ, not a brilliant qualifying for him. He's got Matt McEwen close for company. Next up, Baptiste Beauvoir. He'll need a strong start in this race with Ryota Kokubun alongside him completing the top 10. The final row of the grid is Tomoaki Yamanaka with last time's winner Kilian Drumont at the very back. Ready to go then for round 2 of the GT World Series. All eyes to the lights on the top of your screen. Benelli on pole, Hinestrosa alongside. Lights out and we're racing. Good start from Benelli. Great from Hinestrosa off the front row of the grid, and likewise Gallo coming through from the second row as we run up to Orusa Radion. Hinestrosa's going to go around the outside of Benelli and goes through into the race lead. Fantastic. Here comes Gallo as well. He pulls alongside Benelli as they come up the rise through the Kemmel Straight. So a brilliant start from Hinestrosa and from Valerio Gallo. Up into Les Combes we go. Pick your breaking point here, boys, because here comes Serrano on the inside with Corazza in there as well, and into the side of Gallo. So they're both off and pushed out. So a disaster of a start for Valerio Gallo. He's down to 10th.
Yeah, big contact there. Didn't quite catch who started that. Looked like it might have been Benelli into the back of someone there, maybe frustrated with his bad start. But big loser from that was Valerio Gallo, who Serrano opted to go across the chicane. Gallo didn't, of course, and as a result, Serrano's now in 4th. Gallo down 11th after an awesome start. And again, not what he would have wanted there. But for Angel Hinestrosa, this is great. He's now got a second and a bit on Lucas Spinelli behind, so he'll be looking to try and stretch that gap as much as possible. But yeah, drama right at the start. Unsurprisingly, that incident is under investigation.
Well, it is 12 laps in duration, this one, and don't forget, of course, we have got inclement weather that is going to be coming into play at some point in this race, we're fairly sure as well. So those soft tyres are going to go off their sort of useful shelf life relatively quickly as the tyre wear multiplier is on ×4. So 4 laps, 1 lap is the equivalent to 4 laps here at Spa. And I'll come back to that thought because Drumont has picked up a penalty on the opening lap, compounding his difficult qualifying.
Yeah, bad to worst really for Drumont, so it's going to be a bit of a race to forget for him already on this first lap. We're on board now with Jose Serrano behind Kanata Kawakami, going up towards Blanchimont for the first time. Let's see if dirty air plays a role in this. Yeah, there you go, a bit of a dab of the brake pedal there and in this car. This car's incredibly quick in a straight line, but compared to the Group 3 machines that we've had here recently, not quite as quick in the corners there. Just, you can see all just trying to get the car to turn in there. Just a little bit, sideways there in the background. That was Gallo trying to make his way back up through the field there, and yeah, I'm not sure if he survived that or not. Hinestrosa, meanwhile, is trying to clear off out in front, 1.4 seconds. Just going back to my earlier thought, as I said, we're expecting weather to come into play at some point in this race, and if it does so, of course, soft tyres are on. You're not going to want to make 2 stops in this one, so you need to eke those soft tyres out for as long as you possibly can, and if the weather doesn't come in until later in the race, they're going to be well past their useful shelf life. Yeah, definitely. It's basically trying to just make the tyre last as long as possible. So actually, it was Corazza who caused that big crash at the start of the race, and I'm not really surprised, to be honest. How many times have we said that, Corazza and crash, in the last couple of years? Crash Ratzer is what he's going to have to be henceforth known as, unfortunately. That was quite harsh. I don't mean that in too harsh of a way, but he has been involved in his fair share of scuffles this year. If the shoe fits, mate. It certainly does. Well, here then is Jose Serrano sitting there in 4th place. He was caught up in those first lap dramas, as we saw. Now sitting behind Kanata Kawakami and the round 1 winner, Lucas Benelli, as well. So here he's on board with Adriano Corazza. Let's see what happens. He's behind Jose Serrano. Yeah, straight to the back of Serrano, straight to the scene of the accident, into the side of Valerio Gallo. Well, what was he expecting to happen there? Like, you're in this like big queue of people, and people are offline. They're going to brake early, and if you're going to just pretend they're not going to brake early and crash into the back of them, then you deserve that 3-second penalty. Well, Adriano Corazza then, 3-second penalty is going to drop him right towards the back of this field because, of course, they're so bunched up, given it's the opening couple of laps. It's going to certainly drop him behind Igor Fraga, who's made something of a
pretty average start, to be fair. He's not looked that comfortable with these Porsche 911 GT1 cars. Qualified 7th, now still sits in 7th after a lap or so. That's going to be elevated to 6th once Karatsa served this penalty, at least.
Yeah, so that'll be up to 6th for Fraga. But, you know, I think that we'll have to wait and see what he does. As you say, you know, we do expect rain at some point in this race. Maybe he'll do a bit better in those conditions, a bit more challenging. I'll tell you who's absolutely thriving right now is Angelina Stroza. 2 seconds now is the gap up front. They're all in equal playing terms here. Spec car, spec tyre, and Stroza just absolutely... he's doing a good job. He's embarrassing Benelli, who was quick last time out, and I did not expect to say that into this race.
I tell you what this is 2019 Tokyo in Stroza, isn't it? Because this is exactly what we saw from him with Porsche. Look at Valerio Gallo on the recovery path then as he goes down the inside of Cockburn into La Source, gets that move done up into 7th place. But I tell you what, after a challenging World Series showdown, had to go into the repechage, didn't have a strong result after finishing 8th at the checkered flag. He needs a nice finish in this race, does Valerio Gallo. 7th place, it's not going to cut the mustard so far.
I reckon he used up all his luck last year, and it's, now he's having to deal with the bad luck.
Quite possibly so, yeah, absolutely. Well, here is Kanata Kawakami, not a driver that we've seen fighting sort of up the sharper end of the field throughout 2022, but great to see him leading the charge for the Japanese drivers. And given that Kokubun and Yamanaka, no discredit to Kawakami here at all, but given that Kokubun and Yamanaka are in the field, I wouldn't have put my money on him being the lead driver.
No, I mean, again, no disrespect to Kawakami, but it's good to see maybe a changing of the guard for the Japanese contingent there. Kawakami is starting to be the one to follow and has the best foot forward. Currently challenging for 3rd place. Jose Serrano is just behind us, the Spanish driver. Been very strong in the last few races we've seen him race in, so I'm sure he's going to try and get by and maybe challenge Benelli as well. But looking at the sector times at the moment, there's just a massive gap between everyone else. And in Stroza, he has really got this car dialed in. Maybe he's found a car that he's... we know he's a bit of a Porsche fanboy, so maybe he's been mailing this car online. Look at that gap.
Yeah, sizable, isn't it? And look at the train forming behind Lucas Benelli, Kawakami, Serrano and Beauvoir, all very close behind. So lap 3 out of 12 we are on. Now, if they were going to pit and stop and go on to the soft compound tyres in this race, you'd expect them to do about the halfway stage, of course, lap 6 there and thereabouts. But of course, if they're going to try and eke it out for that weather, my only concern here with Stroza, he's pushing really hard in the early stages. What if that rain doesn't arrive until a bit later in the race than he's expecting? He's chewed up those softs.
That definitely is a risk you've got to take, you know, but we know these tyres around here, they're great until they're not, I think is the best way of putting it, because there's so many high-speed corners around here. As soon as you lose that tyre grip, it just gets worse and worse. It all compounds. You start sliding through the fast corners, that heats up the tyre more, it wears the tyre more, you slide more through the corners, heats up the tyre, etc, 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 and you just end up going down this pit of despair. So hopefully Angel can stay out of the pit of despair, TM, the GT pit of despair.
Drummond and Yamanaka here we need to keep an eye on. So Drummond goes a little bit wide coming out of Pouon then. Gallo's on the outside here, and I think there's going to be a smattering of contact. This is between Yamanaka. So Yamanaka there on the inside. Drummond as well picking up a slight penalty there for track limits. And yeah, like you say, Gallo in the wars.
Did he insult the field before he started the race or something? did he say something? Everyone's out to get him, it seemed. He's not having a good one. Poor Valerio. We know he's got the pace, but this race might be one that gets away from him. Although saying that, he is starting to get onto the back of this group of cars for second, so it's far from over there for Valerio Gallo.
I have to say though, those clouds are looking a little bit more ominous overhead. Now the drivers do have a weather radar when they're sat behind their sim rigs. They are able to kind of see when the inclement weather's getting closer. But if it starts or not, it's at risk, isn't it? Do you stay out for a lap longer? Do you come in? I mean, we're not at that stage at the moment if it's going to come in, but when it does...
Have you seen like, the weather radar in game when it comes? It's like just a block of water. You're like, oh no! and you see it just come and just make the car almost undrivable. I want to say, just very quickly, in terms of fastest lap, Angelina Stroza is nearly 8 tenths quicker than Benelli behind. He's got 8 tenths from the field pretty much. In fact, the next fast person track is probably Igor Fraga and Gallo, who are sort of out of the train. But this is fantastic for Stroza. The more time he can gain now, the less he's got to put in on that possible wet tyre if the rain does come later on. I'm not sure when it's... I know it's scheduled some point in this race. They don't tell us. I'll just try and keep it somewhat interesting, but I know it's coming soon.
Well, let's not forget, of course, it is a long pit lane, though, here at Spa-Francorchamps as well. They're using the 24-hour layout, so they have to go through the GP pit lane, round the hairpin on the inside, then down into the actual pit lane, which the drivers are going to use. And who is going to be the first to blink once this weather comes in? So, on board we ride here with Baptiste Beauvoir, sat behind Serrano, behind Kawakami. You've got to feel the frustration here for Baptiste. Fourth, of course, in the World Series showdown. Last time out when we were at Salzburg, so not a bad result there for him, but just hasn't looked that comfortable with these cars. And I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? These cars in the Nations Cup are totally different to the GT3 cars we saw last time out in the Manufacturer Series, and that's the thing with the Nations. You have to be adaptable, don't you?
You do, and I think maybe we do him a disservice a little bit by saying that, but it's more that you imagine all the cars in Gran Turismo 7. There are I don't know the official number. That's a Tom Brooks question, but there's a vast amount of cars in GT, and you're expected as one of these drivers to be good in pretty much all of them. So, you know, these guys will be driving Group 3 one weekend, Group 4 another weekend. They'll be driving old Skyline boxes another weekend, and then of course now they're driving the road version of a GT1 car. So yeah, definitely a big challenge.
I love seeing Lucas Benelli's on board. He always looks like you've asked him an algebra question, doesn't he? He always looks just a little bit perplexed.
We should start doing that mid-race. Get on the comms. Right, Benelli, mate, what does X equal? Here's a graph, and just see what happens to him.
Yeah, I'm sure he's probably he's probably about as good as maths as I am when he's on the fly. Yeah, it's terrible. Those clouds definitely looming overhead. You can see it's getting very grey and murky here at Spa-Francorchamps. We're approaching half distance now then as we look at Kanata Kawakami sitting in third place. The gap between Inestrosa and Benelli starting to stabilise now, about 3 seconds or so.
Yeah, it's, I think maybe that charge from Inestrosa starting to wear off a little bit. The lap times have, he is still quicker than Benelli, but the gap is a lot slower now. Everyone else seems to have got their act together and is now lapping kind of in the mid to low 2:15 bracket, which is where the quick guys are at the moment. So what do you do there if you're Benelli? Really, you've got to try and up the pace a little bit, try and claw back some of that gap to Inestrosa. 3 seconds in a field of drivers this strong is a long time, so it's going to take a lot for these guys to pull back in. Of course, Inestrosa, we had a quick look at the tyre wedges there. He actually used a bit more of a tyre than those behind him, but not substantially more. It isn't night and day, so I think he'll be able to probably keep that tyre alive for as long as he needs to. And I'm just seeing maybe some wipers coming on there.
So, is this the time when the rain begins to hit? We are now at the half race distance. This is when we would expect the normal pit stops to start taking place if the race was going to be completely bone dry. But we know that weather is on the horizon. But when is it going to hit, and what are the drivers going to do then? This is a brilliant element of strategy, bit of unpredictability into these races, and it's all going to be who makes the right call as they come up the rise through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. Looking here at Jose Serrano, just in front of him is Kanata Kawakami, who in turn is being towed along by Lucas Benelli. So I don't know whether Serrano is going to have enough straight line speed in order to be able to close up, and indeed that gap looking relatively stable unless he goes for a lunge down the inside into Les Combes, which thankfully he thinks better of. It would be a bit of a day late and $1 short into there, I have a feeling.
Yeah, I thought I saw the wipers coming on, but maybe it's just on that end of the circuit. Maybe just over there, that's where the water is. So we'll see as we get a bit later on into the lap.
Well, that's the thing about Spa-Francorchamps, isn't it, though? You see that, of course, in Formula 1. It can be raining at one part of the circuit, bone dry at another.
Yeah, just to really mess with our drivers, you know. We like to give them a challenge. They deserve it. They're some of the best drivers, of course, in the GT7. So good to try and keep on their toes, so to speak. So we're still on board with Serrano, of course, in this 911 GT1 road version. Always interesting they didn't pick the race car and they gave them the road version instead. Just no one likes these drivers, do they? They like to really challenge them.
I tell you what, though, that dashboard, I know it's a very sort of odd tangent to go off on, but it just reminds me of my father. He used to have a 911 964 when I was growing up, and it looks identical. I saw it and I thought, that just brings back childhood memories for me. I absolutely love the 911.
Yeah, I mean, awesome car, of course, very well known, well loved amongst the world. Of course, this car actually in real life as a race car wasn't actually that good, but we'll just gloss over that a little bit.
Well, when everyone's in the same one, it's as good as the next one at least.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, I guess that's fair to say. So, interestingly, seeing Serrano put on his high beams there, I think maybe getting a little bit frustrated.
gap between the top two beginning to increase, now up to nearly 4 seconds then here. So nobody pitting this time around. What about the inclement weather that we're expecting to come in, though? It's definitely getting greyer, it's definitely getting murkier. Is anybody going to blink at this stage? I think it's a bit too soon because we can't see any weather. Or are we seeing a strategy call here from Jose Serrano? We are. He's going to go onto intermediate tyres, but the track looks like it's bone dry.
That's got to be too early, surely. I mean, maybe he's seen something on the weather radar. Karatsa's, I think, seen the same thing. But, well, actually, no, we are now seeing drops of rain, so that might have been a masterstroke. Yeah, the rain's now coming down fairly hard as we now go up the Kemmel Straight. And in Inestrosa, Benelli, Kawakami, Beauvoir, everyone ahead of the guys we've pitted are on that soft compounder tyre. Will they be able to keep it alive for that one lap? This is going to be very interesting from these guys. That was a hell of a call.
Well, that is brilliant for Jose Serrano. This is Nürburgring 2007 vibes in Formula 1, if you remember that race. But these drivers now on slick tyres, they're going to have to do everything they can to keep as much pace as they can, keep the temperature in the tyres, because, of course, if that goes out the operating window, it's going to be like driving around an ice rink.
Yeah, it won't be too long before that happens. I mean, of course, you'll know in GT7 you've got a little bit of a sort of gauge, you know, how much water there is on the circuit when you start to aquaplane, and especially if we're on the racing slick compounder tyres, which we are. Any bit of rain on these tyres, and I tell you from real life experience, makes it very, very tricky to get around the circuit in the same way you were before. Keeping the heat in the tyres is just, it's everything at this point. If you slow down to account for the weather, the heat comes out of the tyres, they become stone cold, and you just have no grip whatsoever. And now you can see Inestrosa starting to struggle a little bit with traction as he comes through this middle sector.
Well, they're going on to the intermediate tyres. I don't think the rain is going to be quite heavy enough to warrant the full wet tyres, but I wonder again if we might see a few gambles coming in. Penalty for Yamanaka and for Adriano Karatsa. Presumably that's due to track limits, as we haven't seen anything come up on our screen that indicates that there would have been an incident, but you can definitely see the standing water is getting heavier. So just one lap ago, this track was almost bone dry. Now the weather has come down, and it has come down with a vengeance. And it's Inestrosa in front, it's Benelli in second, it's Kawakami in third, it's Serrano and Karatsa, the two drivers who have made the pit stop, made the early call onto the intermediate tyres, and that might prove to be absolutely inspired.
The rain isn't too bad at the moment. I do expect them to come into the box and change tyres, although it seems that Inestrosa hasn't, Gallo hasn't either. Some of them are opting to stay out. Now, I want to look at the Sector 2 times that we have on our board here, so we can see if Serrano is actually quicker or slower on those intermediate tyres. It seems that everyone now has split strategy. Inestrosa, Gallo opting to stay out, Kokumin opting to stay out, but some opting to come in for that intermediate tyre now. And right now, that Sector 2 time for Serrano is 4 seconds slower, 5 seconds slower than the Sector 2 time of Inestrosa on the last lap. So staying out might be the right call.
But the thing is, that's all well and good up until the tyres go off the cliff. If you then stay out for a lap too long and you're driving around and you've got no grip underneath you, you can cost yourself 10-15 seconds very quickly. Lucas Benelli into the pits then. He decides that enough is enough. Off the soft tyres, onto the intermediate tyres. Kawakami, Beauvoir, Fraga, Drumont and McEwen all following suit. So only the top 4 drivers, that's Inestrosa, Gallo, Kokumin and Yamanaka, all continue on the soft tyres. They haven't made their mandatory stop yet.
So I'm going to keep an eye on your Sector 1 time. So I'm looking at Jose Serrano next to Angel Inestrosa. It's a 38.7 for the first sector for Inestrosa. When Serrano comes through, we'll give you his time. So he's coming through the first. He's coming through the Eau Rouge now. You see the car sliding. So even on those intermediate tyres, maybe the water a bit too much for those.
Kawakami versus Beauvoir. Beauvoir's going to dive it down the inside, then goes through into Lecombe. Nice move from Baptiste then. Now sits in front of Kawakami, in front of Igor Fraga, the 2018 champion, who's having a bit of a dog's race out there down in 8th.
It was too soon. It's too soon for Serrano, Tom. He's 2 seconds slower in Sector 1 alone, even now with the water coming down. So staying out was the right choice here for Inestrosa, Gallo and Kokumin. So this might be a good way for Gallo to sort of reinvigorate his race after a slow start, staying out a little bit longer and just controlling that soft tyre in the wet conditions. And Inestrosa's doing a great job. 7 seconds now the gap towards Gallo. Will he pit in this lap?
Well, the pit loss time, 29 seconds plus the stop, so about 2 seconds or so. And look at the gap between Yamanaka and Benelli, 30 seconds or so there and thereabouts. So, as you say, will we see the pit stops coming into play? And crucially, what is the picture going to look like? In comes the leader, Inestrosa boxes. I reckon the rest are going to follow suit after this as well.
Yeah, the rain's been coming down for a while now, so it is wetter on circuit, but I think they've really maximised the use of that tyre. So Benelli is going to be our benchmark to see where they are now compared to those who opted to stay out. So Benelli came in a bit earlier. Let's have a look at his sector times for Benelli here. His middle sector was so much slower. It was about 4 seconds slower. So they've all pitted too early, Tom.
Well, it's easy with hindsight to say that they've made the wrong strategy call. Yamanaka, according to what we can see, has gone soft to soft, so he's not going to go on to the intermediates at all. There's nothing in the rules that says he can't do that, but that's brave.
If anyone's going to do it,
it's going to be Yamanaka.
Yeah. I mean, fair enough, mate. I mean, maybe that might be a graphical error on our screen, because I can't see why you would go onto the soft tyre at this point. But if we see him now blasting past the rest of the field, you know that he's got that sorted out.
Well, let's see what's going to happen here for Tomoaki Yamanaka. A bit of a Dan Dare strategy call, and is it going to be one that pays dividends? The rain still continues to fall here at Spa-Francorchamps. Lucas Benelli still looks like he's being asked a difficult algebra question, but he's got Baptiste Beauvoir, who we know is not afraid of putting a move on.
And look at the gap. That's Yamanaka there, who actually opted to take a little bit of fuel, just about coming up ahead, or just behind Benelli. And the gap now to the front of the field, where Benelli was challenging the leaders, is now up to about 5 seconds. So he's lost time there. You can see him sort of talking something. How's that happened? So, well, it wasn't the right choice. That soft tyre lasted longer. And now I'm wondering if Yamanaka will be able to do much on this soft. This is the one to watch.
Well, yeah, he certainly is. He's going to be like a sitting duck, surely, coming through Les Combes, because he's got Igor Fraga all over the back of him. And look at him sliding, scrabbling to try and hold on for the grip. And Fraga's up his inside. He goes through, and surely his heart is going to sink like a stone, is Yamanaka's now. It was a bold strategy call. It was certainly brave, but look at the understeer through into Rivage. I mean, I know it's a corner that induces that kind of behaviour in a car anyway, but it's surely too much now to ask of those slicks.
Yeah, that's not going to work for him, I don't think. It was a bold, I say bold, that's maybe a bit silly, to be honest, to go onto the soft, but maybe worth a go in this situation. But at the head of the field, Angelo Inostroza leads from Valerio Gallo. The gap's come down to 2 seconds. It makes me think that Inostroza was using quite a bit of fuel trying to pull away there from Gallo. Now Gallo, who had an awful start, is now kind of where he wants to be. He's chasing down Inostroza. He's quick in his wet conditions. I think he's got a chance here.
And a shout out to Cockburn as well, up there into third place after a very lowly grid position. He's really managed to take advantage. This is a thing, when you've got rain coming in, it's all about strategy, it's all about timing it right, and it looks like, as you say, Gallo, Cockburn, et al. Have all timed this to perfection, and they've really managed to take advantage of that, whilst the others have kind of followed everybody else. They've done something a bit different.
Yeah, +7 for Ryota Kokubun on his grid position. That's the drive of the champion, that is. Awesome job so far by Kokubun. Angelo Inostroza now, can he hold on? That's the question. Can he hold on from a charging Valerio Gallo? Baptiste Beauvoir looking for a lunge on Lucas Benelli there. Can't quite get that working, but again, still in 5th place and still managing the intermediate tyres there. Very, very slippery. And speaking of tyres, Yamanaka has lost about 5-6 seconds that lap, so I'd be surprised if we don't see him pit.
Yeah, those slick tyres definitely out of their operating window now, especially given the standing water, as you can see on the circuit. The rooster tails being kicked up here by the drivers coming out of La Source.
Has it stopped raining, Tom?
I'd definitely say it's decreased in intensity. I think you could be right. I think you are actually right, because definitely I remember on that camera angle last time around, the rain was coming down. We could definitely see it. Carranza's into the pit lane. He knows it's stopped raining. Is he going to go for... I mean, to be fair, Carranza's had a shocker since that opening lap. He's got nothing to lose.
I mean, it doesn't matter what he does now, really, because that pit stop's going to lose him about 30 seconds. So unless he gains back, I think it's about 45 seconds on pace in 2 laps. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
So then, here is Igor Fraga with Kanata Kawakami just in front of him. Fraga needs to make some forward progress in this race, and he's right bunched up in this sort of 4-way scrap for position with Lucas Benelli at the helm of it, his compatriot. And as we say, Fraga hasn't had such a good race out there so far. He needs to start making those moves whilst this field is bunched up. He's got a couple of laps to do so here, but of course you have to be so careful in these weather conditions.
You do. One mistake here in this car and you're going to go spearing off into the barrier. And just looking now, Inostroza possibly starting to feel the pressure from Gallo. We know Inostroza's got a bit more fuel than Gallo, but Inostroza won't know that. And all we can see right now is that relative getting smaller and smaller behind him. On board Igor Fraga, still in 7th place where he started, trying to find a way by Kawakami and Beauvoir. We were saying Kawakami maybe picking up the slack for his fellow countrymen earlier on, but then Kokubun jumped everyone and went into third place. That's experience there. That's experience from Ryota Kokubun. He's been around doing his events since I've been around, so a very long time. And yeah, he's really just jumped the whole field with that strategy, pretty much. So that's a great stroke by him.
How is the walking stick, by the way?
Not as strong as it used to be.
Anyway, Igor Fraga then sits in 7th place. Kanata Kawakami just in front of him. The gap between Inostroza and Gallo stabilising at about 2.5 seconds, there and thereabouts. In terms of the lap times, though, last time around, whether Inostroza made some kind of an error or something, I don't know, but his lap time was about 4 seconds slower than Gallo's.
So Yamanaka is doing now the same time on the soft tyres than the guys are doing on the Inters. So we might see a late charge here from Yamanaka. If it goes a couple more % his way, he'll have a car that is substantially faster than everyone else. But there's still so much water there that it's hard to describe.
Absolutely. I'm just having a look at the lap times. Inostroza last time around 2:27.5. Yamanaka on the soft tyres 2:26.8. There you go.
And Drew Model on the Inters are 2:26.1. So yeah, I mean,
it's apples and oranges at the moment, isn't it, really?
Basically, it doesn't matter which tyre you're on right now. They're both working fairly well. These Inters will like the water a bit more than the softs will, of course, which means if you do end up getting on the wrong line of the soft tyre, you will have a fairly large moment. Beauvoir then up ahead of us, looking for a spot on Benelli, but can't quite make that work. Benelli shutting the door fairly firmly there, as he's entitled to do. Kawakami wide now. Will Fraga look for a chance coming up? Coming down to Rivage, I should say, onto the wet part of the circuit. Look for a dive. He's up the inside, almost alongside. Next corner, though, is a left-hander, so Kawakami will have the advantage there, but Fraga's going to try and go the long way around there. Kawakami forcing Fraga wide on the apex, as he's entitled to do, and Fraga has to settle for 7th for now.
Quite brilliant driving there by Kawakami and Igor Fraga. Great recognition to give the Brazilian racing room from Kawakami over those couple of corners and just place his car absolutely brilliantly. I really thought that would bring Kawakami and Fraga into play, that battle between Benelli and Beauvoir. If they start getting their elbows out, here comes Fraga for a dive down the inside into the chicane. Up he goes, but they're going to flick it left. Kawakami once again is going to have track position. Can he have the traction on the outside, though? Yes, he can. Fraga goes through into P6.
Always going to be more traction out there on a wet circuit. You can see the sun now starting to come out again, so this circuit's going to dry fairly rapidly now as we come on to the last lap, nearly about a lap and a half to go in this race, with Angela Inostroza leading. Fraga just past Kawakami there, we saw that on your screens. I'm interested to see now if behind there's Yamanaka. So Yamanaka now on the renewed soft tyre is now starting to show his pace. He's gained about 2-3 seconds. These guys, as Dumont goes wide there, slides wide on board with Kawakami. Are we going to see Yamanaka dive up our inside here on that soft tyre? No, but he's very close. No, he did. There he is. So there's Yamanaka on the right-hand side there. He's got a ton of speed right now. He is on fire on those soft tyres and just is carving through the field.
This is working brilliantly for Tomoaki Yamanaka. We're on the final lap then here at Spa-Francorchamps, and the momentum is certainly with the Samurai then. Look, though, in the forefront of your shot, it's Beauvoir versus Benelli into last source. Beauvoir just about managing to not run into the back of the Brazilian driver as they come up the rise through Eau Rouge and Radion for the final time.
There was a fat old dive there on Fraga by Yamanaka. That might be a penalty. We'll see if it is or not. But at the moment, I'm interested to see just how fast the Japanese driver can go here. He's in 6th right now, but every corner he gains substantially on everyone in front of him. He just has so much more grip underneath him. And let's see if he can get up into a possible... he should be able to get past Beauvoir and Benelli, but I don't think he'll be able to catch Kokubun. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I think a podium might just be, as you say, a bit of a day later. Dollar Short goes up the inside of Beauvoir into turn 7. Can he make that stick through there? Beauvoir's pushed out onto the curb, and Yamanaka goes through into P5, but a penalty on the last lap too.
He has to take every opportunity, which is why there's so many lunges here. That one was more fair. He was definitely there. He'll go for a go on Benelli here as well, who'll turn in. Oh, come on, Yamanaka, mate, chill out. You have the race here. Come on. It's a shame he's got that penalty, but let's see what he can do. He should be able to open up the gap far enough to Benelli for these next few corners that the second penalty will not matter. Here, looking back now from a Japanese driver's POV, and look how much more grip he has, just driving away from Benelli like he's standing still, like he's in a different class. He'll go through the pit path, and I think he'll have the gap to serve the penalty, but it's a real shame because I think he could have caught Kokubun. Look at the gap coming down. It's 2.1 seconds now.
Absolutely brilliant from Tomoaki Yamanaka on the final lap, and look, he's catching up for the podium, boys, here. But if the race was a lap longer and he didn't have that penalty, you imagine he would certainly be challenging for that, because Gallo and Cockburn are all at sea on these intermediate compound of tyres. Here comes Yamanaka then into the penalty zone, as Angel Inestrosa has managed to control this race from the front. He kept it conservative on the tyre call, but he kept it calm, cool and collected, whilst others around him panicked and pitted a bit too soon, and it has worked out absolutely brilliantly for the Chilean driver as he comes around the final corner here at Spa-Francorchamps. It's the win for Angel Inestrosa in round 2 of the GT World Series in the Nations Cup. Valerio Gallo comes home in second, and Cockburn finishes third. Yamanaka salvages fourth on the final lap, with Benelli just getting the better of Baptiste Beauvoir for fifth, ahead of Fraga, Drumont, Kawakami and Serrano inside the top 10. What a race, what a finish.
So race results, and Angel Inestrosa takes his first victory of the year there from Valerio Gallo in second, and Ryota Cockburn, an awesome recovery from him in third. Yamanaka there with a penalty, still fourth place. He was 4 seconds faster than Inestrosa on that last lap. One must wonder what could have been if he didn't get that 1 second penalty. Benelli there fifth, Beauvoir in sixth, and Igor Fraga having a bit of a bad race by his standard, seventh place, with Drumont eighth, Kawakami ninth, Serrano 10th, McEwen 11th, and Karatsa about 35 seconds off the back of the field in 12th.
Time then for the podium celebrations after round 2 of the GT World Series. What a dramatic race. Just goes to show that a sprinkling of rain can add some excitement in. Third place then for Ryota Cockburn. A very strong finish. Second place goes to Valerio Gallo, back on the box after a challenging start to his season. But what a drive from the race winner. He kept it calm, he kept it cool, and he takes the checkered flag. It is the top step of the podium for the Chilean driver, Angel Inestrosa, in round 2 of the GT World Series. Now then, let's hear from our winner. Well, Angel, congratulations. I mean, after a brilliant start, that looked like a relatively simple sort of win, but I guess with changing conditions and such like, there wasn't much of an opportunity for you to relax.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, the start was perfect. I managed to overtake Bonelli, and yeah, we didn't know when the rain was starting to. Sorry. Sorry, I'm too happy now. I'm too happy. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Well, it was a great win. Do you enjoy racing in the wet? Did you enjoy the extra element to the race?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like driving in the wet. You have to be so focused with the throttle, with the braking, with taking different lines, that yeah, I really love driving on the wet. And I hope we can get more races with wet conditions.
Well, this win, of course, comes with World Series points that you'll take into the World Finals. So how important is that for you and for your challenge for the title?
Well, how important it is? It really is really important, because if I'm not mistaken, I got 3 points. So yeah, everything you can add into the world final, it's all worth it. So yeah, this win well helps me a lot in my way to I don't know, fight for the championship.
Well, obviously, we've seen some really competitive races, not only online, but in person at Salzburg last time out as well. Are you feeling that this could possibly be your year, that you could bring the crown to Chile?
Well, I don't know what to say actually, but I always try to do my best. I don't know if this could be my year. I'm always fighting for it. So yeah, let's see what happens on round 3 and in the World Finals. But yeah, I will always be fighting to win the championship, as I do every year.
Well, Angel, congratulations and thank you very much for your time. Well, sheer delight then for Angel Inestrosa for taking the checkered flag. That brings an end to round 2 of the GT World Series. Round 3 comes your way at the end of October with the manufacturers and the Nations Cup. Thanks to Jimmy Broadbent, and thank you from myself, Tom Brooks, as well. We'll see you again next time.